What's growing on, gardeners? It's Saturday, January 27th, and last week we had a historic, once-in-a-generation cold outbreak hit the United States. I warned you it was coming 2 weeks ago, and I warned you to protect your plants and your garden because it was going to get mighty cold. Well, ironically, I wasn't able to appropriately protect all of my plants because I was out of the country when the cold hit. So on today's video, we're going to explore the yard and garden and see exactly what survived and what didn't. And honestly, I have no idea what to expect.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Now here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, we didn't get hit as hard as other places further inland in the United States. We were a little bit more protected being so far east. However, we still got very cold, and they will probably be the coldest temperatures of the year by far. I will post right here what all of my temperatures were over the past couple of weeks as recorded by my weather station. And look, I know that some of you got it way worse than I did, but it doesn't change the fact that it's mighty cold, way colder than it typically is. Now look, I know that the cold that we endured is nothing compared to what you guys get in Minnesota, New York, and Idaho, and other northern locations, but remember, cold is all relative to your infrastructure, your location, and what you have planted around. We grow things all year here, so cold has devastating effects on what we grow and also damages our shallow infrastructure. Believe me, we're laughing at you guys when you have your third 90-degree day in a row in the summer and you can't take it, because we're on day 47 by now. So just remember, heat and cold is all relative. We just got back from a week-long vacation on Little Cayman Island. Under normal circumstances for normal people, we picked the absolute best week of the entire year to go because we missed the entire Arctic blast. It would have been wonderful, except I have so much sensitive vegetation growing on in my yard and garden that for me, it was actually nerve-wracking. Now, over the years, I have showed you how to protect your fruit trees and your garden by using these plant jackets, incandescent lights, and large 60-gallon tubs of water in order to add warmth. And under normal circumstances, this easily adds 10+ degrees of protection. It works fantastic. The problem is when we get our annual minimum nights for the year, I usually like to bolster them a little bit. I like to put a supplemental tarp over them. That way I can trap in more of the heat. But because I was gone all week, I couldn't do that because you can't leave a tarp over evergreen trees for 8 days straight. You could actually kill them or damage them because they need light every single day, and now it's 74 degrees and it would be just too warm for them. So because of that, I had to let the trees sink or swim with their basic protection, and I simply turned on the lights from afar when it got really cold out. And believe me, it was pretty nerve-wracking. There were a couple of nights where it was difficult to sleep. The very young citrus trees in my rear property are some of my biggest concerns because they don't have supplemental warmth from the incandescent lights. All they have are water barrels under here. So luckily I had a little bit of help from my neighbors. I kept this light permeable cloth on the entire time, but to add a little bit of additional warmth, I also added this frost blanket, which they came over and they pulled over at sunset and then pulled it off the next day once the sun rose. That way the trees could get light, because like I said, they can't hang out underneath that frost blanket with no light for 7 or 8 days straight. So this is going to be my biggest test ever of these cold protection methods because I wasn't here to monitor anything. So you're going to find out just how effective all of these protection methods that I've been broadcasting over the years actually are. And if this works out well and you want to employ these methods on your own, I will make sure to drop a link in the video description that is a playlist for every single one of them so you can use them in your yard and garden too. And of course, at the end of this video, we will check on my vegetable garden. Nothing here is heated. All I did was put frost cloth up on top of everything to protect my cold crops. So we'll check these out at the end as well. So now we will go ahead and remove all of the different plant covers from my yard and garden, and we will survey any damage that exists underneath. All of the covers have been removed from my plants, so now I'm going to take you in for a closer look. However, before I do that, I want you to be able to understand how cold damage manifests. A lot of people think that cold damage sets in at a certain temperature, but that's not necessarily the case. Yes, the minimum temperature does play a role, but it's also how long the plant had to endure those cold temperatures and whether or not it came back up above freezing quickly. The problem that we had with the Arctic air outbreak is, yes, we had back-to-back nights in the teens, but we also had a long period where every night got into the low 20s before that, and it didn't warm back up much during the day. So these plants endured many hours, the better part of the day, below freezing before it finally popped back up. So that time spent below freezing means that damage can set in at a warmer temperature than a brief flash freeze that gets really, really cold, but immediately warms right back up and pops out. So this was kind of the worst kind of freeze, where the cold just lingers and it doesn't warm back up. So because of that, plants can take damage at a warmer average temperature. So we will begin our post-freeze tour with my Owari Satsuma. This is my most cold-hardy citrus tree, and it's also the most mature. And as you can imagine, there's absolutely no damage on this tree at all. Covering it when temperatures are in the teens is an absolute joke. The other thing is I left a lot of the fruit on here because I just couldn't harvest them all. My garage was just full, and the fruit is absolutely fine. It didn't take any damage. I just ate a Satsuma right there, and they're fine. They're delicious still. Next, we have my Meyer lemon tree. The Meyer lemon is not nearly as hardy as the Owari Satsuma, but it is still plenty hardy. And I looked over the whole tree, and it took absolutely no damage at all, not even the top leaves. This is not cold damage. This is just vegetation that is sad because it had the weight of the cover on it for 9-10 days straight. So that will pop back up. I also left an enormous number of lemons on here because I just couldn't pick them all and store them all, and all of the lemons are completely perfect, no damage at all, and man, just beauties. The tree that I knew would be my biggest problem is my Lila avocado tree. Now, I prune this tree every single fall, but this year I did it in the late summer, earlier than ever before. And as a result, it flowered earlier than ever. Normally, I prune this in late September and it flowers for me in late January, early February. Well, I pruned it this year in late August, and it flowered as a result much earlier than ever. And I knew this was going to be a nightmare. This thing flowered in late November. So now I know I need to prune this tree later than earlier, because if I make it flower early, then it's going to be very susceptible to these January freezes, and that is exactly what you see right here. All of the flowers that were pressed up against the plant jacket in the front of the tree are dead. They got absolutely smoked, and there is a lot of dead vegetation that is in the front of the tree. Ugh, this is just cooked. And this is a shame because I hand pollinated a lot of these. These flowers were in really good shape. So unfortunately, I am going to lose hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flowers on this tree, which will obviously translate to a much thinner harvest. So all of those dead flowers are going to have to be tipped and cut off, and I doubt that they will flower again. It is probably too late in the season. However, the good news is that all of the flowers inside the tree are a-okay. There's a lot of female flowers open right now, so now is actually a really good time to hand pollinate. But as you can see, this tree took a lot of damage, unfortunately. So there you go. If you live in a cold climate where you're really pushing an avocado tree, make sure that you prune this later, not earlier, because the sooner you tip your branches, the earlier they will actually flower for you. So unfortunately, I had to learn this the hard way. And hey, that's okay, because this is how we know to garden. This is how you dial things in. Now I know not to prune my tree in August. It's too early. And the only way you're going to learn that is by making the mistake and learning the hard way. But now I will never make that mistake again. But the good news is the tree is a-okay. There's only a little bit of light vegetative damage on the front of the tree, and some of the flowers will have to be snipped off. The actual tree itself is still healthy as a horse. It is absolutely beautiful otherwise. So we will give the dead vegetation a nice little pruning. We'll get rid of it. We will mulch it around the base of the tree. And in another couple of weeks, the tree will fully recover and it will be like nothing ever happened. Yeah, I'll lose a couple hundred flowers, but there are still thousands of flowers on the tree. The new sugar bell in the front of my house that takes the full brunt of the north-facing wind is absolutely perfect. I did pick all of the fruits off of this tree beforehand, just in case, but all I had to protect the tree was this 5-gallon Lowe's bucket full of water and 2 40-watt strands of incandescent mini lights, so 80 watts total, and then a plant jacket. And that was more than enough to protect the tree. There is absolutely no damage on it whatsoever. So it goes to show you that this sugar bell variety is super cold hardy and really great for people growing in cooler climates. The citrus in my rear property, wow, I am just so impressed, especially because these are such young trees and they have no incandescent lights for warmth. All they have are these 3 60-gallon pickle barrels full of water. And I thought that these would struggle to warm back up during the day because it barely got above freezing for a few days. But let me tell you, these trees, I think they never dropped below 29 degrees, even when it was deep into the teens at night when I had the double covers on. My brown select Satsuma, no damage whatsoever. Meiwa kumquat, absolutely no damage whatsoever. The fruit is still pristine. And my Caracara red navel orange, which is not supposed to be nearly as cold hardy, has taken absolutely no damage whatsoever. Even the portion of the tree that was touching the covers, there's nothing harmed on this tree. It is pretty much pristine. Yes, it looks a little bit sad because that had the cover on it for almost 10 days straight, but all of these trees will perk right back up. This citrus is just working out so great underneath this little understory by the fence in my rear property. Now we will check out my raised bed garden, and this is a little bit more of a mixed bag. We will start off with my sugar snap peas that I pathetically mistimed. I planted them way too late in the summer, and they never got to the point where they would flower. They were just starting to flower, really. So I gave up on these. I let them get hit with back-to-back nights in the teens, and you can see absolutely devastated. They are all dead. I'm going to mulch them. Now this little raised bed right here, this had seedlings in it of lettuce and radishes and carrots, and because the seedlings are so young, I decided to cover it with just a basic row cover, and I held it down with some bricks, and everything in this bed is absolutely pristine. In fact, it looks like a lot of stuff germinated in the back while I wasn't around, so it probably appreciated that row cover on top of it. It actually held in a little bit of warmth and helped speed up some germination, so that's pretty awesome. In this bed are my King Richard leeks, which are practically a year old by now. These just laugh at temperatures in the teens, so absolute joke to them. These mustard greens, which are very mature, I left these completely uncovered, and it looks like some of the older leaves on the bottom died back, but the new vegetation is completely pristine. Same thing with all of my garlic. All I did was give them a thick layer of mulch, and they are all completely unharmed. This is wonderful to see right here. These are my collard greens and my new red fire lettuce. All I did was I had this hoop house with a row cover over them, no additional source of heat, and everything under here. Absolutely perfect. That lettuce is pristine and ready for harvest, and then these collard greens, not even a sign of any kind of dieback. Just beautiful. I am thrilled by this. Then I have my kale, which is an entire year old. I left this completely unprotected, no cover, no assistance of any kind. Same thing with that little head of old Swiss chard back there. And it looks like no damage on anything. Everything is pretty much pristine. So that right there is some great news. Under this raised bed right here, I have my bunching onions, which I'm harvesting as green onions. All I did was I left an open cover here. It's a very thin 1-ounce agricultural blanket, and temperatures in the teens did absolutely nothing to them underneath this little light fabric. Everything in here is completely perfect. Then in this bed right here, I have a lot of seedlings coming up, so I decided to cover this again with some light agricultural fabric. We have my carrot seedlings, which are brand new, no damage to them at all. We have my chard and my beets, no damage at all under cover. I have a whole bunch of lettuce seedlings that are just starting to come up. No damage at all. I saw some great germination. I have some lettuce heads in here. That ugly looking one is romaine that I kept underneath a milk jug. That took some damage, but the leaf lettuces did not. And then I have all of this spinach and arugula that I just planted. Absolutely perfect, no damage. Then here are some more leeks and some younger kale. They are all absolutely fine. I left them completely uncovered. Here I have some parsley seedlings and some dill. I made sure to put a light little fabric fleece over them, and they have basically no damage and look great. More leeks, uncovered, undamaged, and then we have cilantro, uncovered and undamaged. And then, of course, your thyme is not going to take any damage when it comes to the teens at night. That's a joke. This old marvel of 4 seasons, self-seeded head of lettuce right here, I actually stacked some bricks around it, and it did protect the lettuce, but it's pretty beat up. This did not fare too well. I'm probably going to have to compost that. My brassica bed, which was mostly mature, unfortunately was a bit of a mixed bag. The mustard greens are pretty much undamaged. They are A-okay. I actually had a couple of Brussels sprouts rot under here that I had to pull, unfortunately. They do not like being under cover as much. My cabbage, my beautiful green acre cabbage, unfortunately, some of them, the heads are still good. They didn't split, but there's been a little bit of rotting on some of them. I had to actually peel some of these leaves back. I think that the cold followed by the heat, since being undercover, it basically went from, 17 degrees at night to a couple of days later, probably 80, 90 degrees under this cover once the sun was beating on it and we got a 70-degree day temperature. I think it's not happy. So I'm going to have to pick this. I have a little worm that is going to work damaging my cabbage. So this is going to be for dinner tonight. That head is the worst of them. The rest of the heads, they kind of look okay. I'm still going to get a nice harvest of these cabbages, and the red cabbage, the purple cabbage, is well behind the green, so they look a-okay. Generally speaking, I find that the purple vegetables are more pest resistant, do better in the heat and the cold. So if you can grow purple varieties, I highly recommend them. The broccoli I have since harvested, but I'm letting just little side shoots and florets form. Looks like the warmth of the last few days while I was away and this cover was on really forced a lot of them into blooming. So most of these are going to have to be removed after I get this little floret harvest because they're bolting and they're pretty much done for the year. Last but not least, my fig trees. I did move all of my potted fig trees up against the east brick wall of my house to give them a little bit of cover, and then I put this shade cloth over them. It doesn't really provide much frost protection. However, it does help keep them in a deeper state of dormancy, which increases their cold hardiness. Now, I have had my figs take damage in the teens quite often. However, contrary to what most of the United States is going through this year, we're having a very cold winter in the southeast. It has been consistently below average. And for that reason, I kind of thought my figs would do pretty well, because the colder it is regularly, they basically become better and more hardened in their dormancy. So I didn't think they'd bud out early this year, and because the cold snap came at the absolute coldest peak of January, they're in a good state of dormancy. So it's been 5 days since it was cold here. So it usually takes about a week of warm temperatures for cold damage to set in, and every single fig that's in ground is nice and snappy and light. So I don't think that my fig trees took any damage officially. So for all of you wondering, am I going to offer fig cuttings this year? I've been pretty busy, so I haven't gotten around to it. I will probably have limited offerings for you guys coming up pretty soon. I wanted to see if they'd survive the cold, and it looks like they did. So there you go, except for a little bit of cold damage on my avocado tree, which is by far my most sensitive of anything that I'm growing in terms of cold. Just on the flowers and the new growth that was right up against the front of the cover, everything for the most part is pretty much a-okay. So it is great to know that I can leave on vacation with the worst Arctic blast coming, and my cold protection methods, they hold up. So there you go. Now look, I did have a little bit of help. My neighbors did take a walk over every single day and just verify that none of my covers blew off, because it was a pretty windy cold front. None of them did. Everything held great. They didn't have to resecure anything. So I'm blessed that I have some really great neighbors that were willing to check up on things for me. But these cold protection methods do work. So if you want to grow these things in a climate that is too cold to grow them out in the open unprotected, employ these cold protection methods. They're awesome, and again, they're all linked in a playlist down in the video description for your reference. And that right there is the biggest test I have ever put my cold protection methods through, and I'm thrilled to say they passed with flying colors. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden or for my fruit trees, I will link to them all down in the video description in my Amazon storefront link. So if you expand that video description, click on the Amazon link, you'll see everything I use in real life. I will also place direct links to all of the different row covers, incandescent lights, and other things I use for cold protection for your convenience as well. So check that out down in the video description. And while you're there, check out my Spread Shop link for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Go, Dale, go! Go, Dale, go! Oh, what was that? What kind of zoomy was that? Oh, he's gonna grab his cheese ball. There he goes. That is one of those yak milk chews that you microwave and then they get nice and puffy. I'm gonna get it. Come on, go get it. Get it. He's vicious. He's vicious. All right, buddy. Ready? And catch. Oh, let's not do that again. That sounded like it hurt. Sorry, buddy. Oh, hope you're all right, my sweet boy. Oh, my sweet boy.